One sec, I'm just going to close the door.
Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to the next finance webinar for international medical graduates. I think we will give it just another 1 or 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, Cyra, should we get started? I think most people will catch up afterwards anyway, don't they?
Yeah, okay.
So we'll get started.
No problem. Thank you, Janvi. Hi, everybody. I'm going to do this very quick presentation on the financial considerations that international medical graduates might have about moving to the UK. It's really short and sweet because I just covered the stuff about the visas and costs you might want to think about, and just a bit of the rules around it that you might not be aware of. But please just pop stuff in the questions so that I can tailor the information to you. So let's just get started. We'll just talk about the actual visa you would be applying for, which is the health and care worker visa, what the key points are about it, what the associated costs with the application are, just a bit of information about renting and buying a home, and a few nuances of the rules that you might not have been aware of. So first of all, the health and care worker visa has replaced the tier 2 work visa, which was the skilled visa that had points, that it's now been replaced by the health and care worker visa. And then the other visa is the skilled worker visa, but you specifically apply for this one as a doctor because it gives you certain perks. So it's a little bit cheaper to apply for, and you don't have to pay the healthcare surcharge, which is what has to be paid for each person on the visa every year to access the NHS. The criteria for this is you have to be a qualified healthcare professional or care professional, so a doctor, a nurse, physiotherapist, etc. They're all shortage jobs, which is why they want people applying for them. And you have to work for an approved UK employer that's been approved by the Home Office, basically the NHS, and it has to be a healthcare provider. So if you're applying for the NHS, for example, that should be quite straightforward because it meets all of those rules, and they're quite used to employing IMGs. They're quite a big organization. They've got a good HR department, so they know what you need. Things like private hospitals, for example, and private care facilities, it'll be individual based on what they know about the rules. But the fact that a lot of them do employ people from abroad, they should have a fairly good idea of what's needed. And the main information you need from them is the certificate of sponsorship, which is the evidence you provide to the Home Office that you've got the job needed to actually get the visa. So next is your English language. So you have to prove your English language just once. It's either for the visa itself or for the professional body that you're applying for. So the GMC or the NMC will have their own English speaking tests, or if you're applying from certain countries that are already English speaking, you won't need to do them. Or if you did your degree or your qualification and it was taught in English, then you don't have to do them. So just have a quick look at those. You might not even have to do the English language tests or get any certificates for that, but you do need a good grasp of the English language. So next, these are the associated costs. They're the ones that I got off the Home Office website. So these are the ones that you actually have to show. You have to prove that you have available for 28 days consecutively, with the day that you're applying to be included in that 28 days. So if you're applying for a visa that's up to 3 years long, that costs £232 a person. If you're applying for a visa that's more than 3 years, remember that each visa is only up to 5 years long, that's £464 a person. The application fee for you only, not your partner or children, is reduced by £55 automatically if you come from any of these countries. I'll just leave this up here for a little bit. But basically, a lot of European countries, basically all European countries, I believe. Yeah, European and West Asian. So if you come from any of these countries, your application fee is slightly lower. And I understand that there's certain ones of these countries as well, that if you come from, you don't actually have to do the English test. So have a look. And you also have to prove that you have enough money to support yourself. Now, the figures they've given here, I don't know where they've decided them from. Based on how expensive the UK is, I would recommend sort of having a nice a buffer, because costs do mount up. But in terms of your application for the visa itself, you need to be able to show that you have a bank account for you personally, which has £1,270 available in it for consecutive 28 days. Your partner will need to show that they have £285 available, and one of the child, so the first child, will have to have £315. And for every additional child on your application, you'll have to have an extra £200 available for them to be able to support yourself in the first few days that you arrive in the UK. Other costs we'll talk about. I've not actually included other things like, transport. You're going to have to sort out a car, phone bill, phone. You're going to have to sort out a mobile phone contract. One of the main things will be finding a home. So at first you may choose to rent. So for renting a home, you'll most likely look at rental properties through estate agents. Estate agents, there are absolutely tons of them. Their entire repertoires are available online. So you can actually contact them from abroad beforehand and do like virtual viewings, ask questions, try and do the applications early. What I understand is because you have come from abroad and you wouldn't have a proven address history or a landlord's reference that they will be willing to use, they do tend to ask for 6 months of rent up front. So when I'm saying about the additional cost, the additional amount of money you might need to have available, that would include 6 months worth of rent for a property that you're looking at. So do keep that in mind. They are legally required to check your eligibility to live in the UK. So they will take photocopies of your passport, your visa, proof of address history from abroad, proof of employment as well, to make sure that you are eligible to have the visa that you've got. And then the additional costs that you'll have to think about are the different types of bills. I've put a bit more an extensive list on the article on mindthebleep.com/finance, but that's not at all exhaustive. It just gives you an idea of the different type of main costs that you'll be coming across. Obviously, when you start to live here and you start to identify things that you may need more of, you can sort of build them in at your own time. But sort of the main integral things we'll talk about. And you'll need to pay council tax, which will be based on a banding that your house is considered to be. That banding will be made available to you at the time of looking at the property. So you can actually find out what your council tax bill will be by using the banding of the property and looking on that particular council's website for what they charge per banding. And you'll have your bills, so your electricity, water, insurance, TV license if you want to get one. The rules are a bit weird about that one, so have a look. But basically, if you watch live TV, you need a TV license. If you watch catch-up TV and you're watching BBC, you need a TV license. Otherwise, you don't actually need one. And internet and things like that. So if you were then thinking, actually, I want to buy a home rather than rent a home, this is a bit more difficult for people who've come from abroad, especially because banks want at least 3 years of an employment and an address history. Unless you're buying in cash, it's quite hard to actually get a mortgage very early on when you've just moved here. If you're buying cash, it isn't actually a problem. You can just buy the property, no need to get a mortgage, no need to actually get involved. There might be some rules about property ownership for people from abroad, but it's not as stringent as the banks would have about giving you a mortgage. So I would suggest using a mortgage broker who's experienced with both people who are from abroad on the skilled worker visa and doctors. We did a webinar 2 weeks ago on mortgages for doctors, and one of my well, the mortgage advisor that I personally used, Tom Davies, joined us for that webinar. I'll have his details on the next slide. He's actually quite well versed in dealing with people on the skilled worker visas and with doctors. So actually his combined knowledge is quite good. I do want to reiterate, we don't actually make any money or anything from actually recommending Tom. The only reason I'm doing so is because I used him. I found him to be really good. So I thought might as well just recommend one that I found. And you know, I just found him by looking online. But it might make your life a little bit easier just having an idea of where to start. You'll need at least 3 years of employment and address history. And you'll need more than a £25 deposit. So that's 25% of the value of the home that you wish to buy. That's so that you'll end up getting a 75% loan to value mortgage. And the bank tends to have the stringent one so that it's only those who can afford to make the repayments can actually get a mortgage. You probably will be offered shorter terms. So normally a mortgage can go up to 25 years. Even longer sometimes, but it's usually 25 years. You might be offered between 10 and 15, depending on what you're doing and your age as well. They'll take that into account. So say you're a doctor, you are an F1, F2, you've just come into the country, you're probably going to look at buying in, say, in 3 years. So you'll be a core trainee, probably early registrar. You might actually be able to get a full 25-year mortgage because you're still quite young. So the bank knows that you can make those repayments because the NHS sort of training treadmill and the job security is actually quite good for doctors. So that will actually factor into it. But they tend to consider certain vocations, so doctors, nurses, to be quite reliable vocations. And so they may be more comfortable giving you a longer term. So this is Tom Davies' details. I'm sorry about that arrow over there, but feel free to screenshot this, come back to it. I've also put them on the article on Mind the Bleep /finance. So do have a look. I again just looked online. I looked for mortgage advisors for doctors, and he was one of the options that came up. So yeah, that's there. So there's just certain restrictions, which you do get a comprehensive list once you've been approved for a visa. But the main ones I wanted to highlight for you was that you're not allowed to apply for most benefits. So things like, unfortunately, if anything happened, unemployment benefit, disability benefit. So if you have a disability and you need some extra payments to help you with your disability, then you're not allowed to apply for those. Council tax benefit, child benefit, things like that. So, and you don't have access to a state pension either. So you won't be allowed to access those until you have indefinite leave to remain. So any visa that has a limited time period, it's called definite leave to remain. And then when your visa becomes indefinite leave to remain, it's basically that you have a visa to stay and work and leave the country and come back as many times as you want. It's not the same as citizenship. You can apply for citizenship after you've got your indefinite leave to remain. And the reason they're sort of separate is actually each application costs quite a lot of money. So you can decide you just want the indefinite leave to remain. You won't get the same sort of perks as a British citizen, for example. So things like you won't be able to sort of have protections when you're abroad from the British Embassy because you're not classed as a British citizen, you're classed as a citizen for which your nationality is. Let's not get into all of that. But basically, if you don't have indefinite leave to remain, these things aren't accessible. The other thing, which I don't think many people even know, and this is come about because a lot of people are coming over at a particular age where they're sort of thinking about family and there's a lot of decisions to be made, but you can't actually access IVF treatment on the NHS without indefinite leave to remain. So you would be charged as a private patient for any IVF treatment that you needed to have. And then lastly, this was one that actually caught my family out many years ago when we first came to this country. And basically, your family, your dependents, the children that come on your visa, they can go to school and they can go to sixth form, which is A levels, but they can't go to university as a national student, which means they wouldn't get the home student fees, which is £9,250. They would have an international student fees, which is much, much higher. The children wouldn't get access to student loans either, to be able to help with the fees. So it can actually be quite difficult, and for some of us very, very surprising, because sometimes we just don't know that your kid might be going to university, they've applied, they're ready to go, and then suddenly you get this big bill in the post because your child's been deemed an international student. And it doesn't matter how long you've lived in the country for, if you don't have indefinite leave to remain, you're classed as an international student. There are a few other ones, but these were the main ones that stuck out. Just a little bit of extra advice. This is more like little financial things that you might find handy when you're coming here. So start, as soon as you come here, create a financial footprint. Have a look at the webinar and the article on mindbleep.com/finance on the credit score. It'll tell you about why it's so important, how to build it, how to make sure you protect it. This is basically what lenders use to make decisions about whether to lend you money. And everyone from rental agencies to mobile phone providers use a credit score to decide whether to give you a service or not. So it's worth making sure you have this in the back of your mind and you know about it. The next thing is to sign up for Government Gateway ID. This is something you just do online. So you just type in Government Gateway, you register, it gives you an ID. It connects to your national insurance number, which you will receive once you get your visa. Again, mindthefleet.com/finance. And it basically is a good way to have a look at the income tax you're paying, your personal tax code, make sure that you're not being overtaxed because of differences in what the company or the NHS HR has told HMRC. So it's just a good way of keeping an eye on things, and you can challenge any tax codes that aren't appropriate. Next, I would say start saving for a deposit early if you would like to buy a home, because of just how high the deposit needs to be for you, because you'll see lots of things about first-time buyers. So when I did the mortgage applications, there was a first-time buyer one. It was all about first-time buyers actually, and the fact that you can have a deposit as low as 5%, you can have help to buy, which gives you a bonus. All of those things you're not going to have access to with without indefinite leave to remain. You will have to have the 25% deposit because of the visa restrictions. And just so you know, after 5 years, you can apply for indefinite leave to remain to live and work in the UK for as long as you like. So if you have got a 5-year visa, then yep, just apply afterwards if you like, rather than having to renew the visa each time and have the same restrictions. So that was really, really short and quick, and a whistle-stop tour. Please do give some feedback. I do really appreciate it. It's very helpful for me. I have changed a lot of things based on previous feedback, so I would genuinely, just a few moments of your time to give me some feedback would be great. Do we have any questions, Janvi?
No, I don't think we have any right now, but we'll give it another minute or so and see if anyone sends anything. Otherwise, like Cyra said before, you can always just contact her by email and she's happy to answer any questions that way as well.
Yeah.
Let me just check once more, Cyra, that there's no more questions.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think there are any questions right now, but I think that was really informative, nice, concise way of summarizing everything. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Do you have any other webinars coming up that you wanted to just...
Yeah, I actually do. So not this week, but the week after. Just check on the event. But I have a webinar on just explaining all of the NHS bursary stuff. So it's going to be explaining how it works for both people who have gone straight from school to an undergraduate medical degree, and how it works for people who've already done a degree going into an undergraduate versus a graduate entry program. So it'll just break all that down. So this is really good for either people applying for medicine or who are already in the early stages of their medical school career and just want to understand how it all works.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions, please send an email. And I've sent the link for the feedback in the comments as well. So make sure you fill that in. And I think that's it. So thank you very
Okay.
much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.